All right. Well, welcome everybody to the St. Louis Pen Show's Pen and Penmanship Expo. We've got Tom Baley here, and if you've ever been to a pen show, you probably run into Tom. He's the guy with the giant table full of Pelikans, both vintage and modern, all kinds of wondrous pens, and he's going to talk to us today about the Souveran line from Pelikan. And Tom, if you want to go ahead and share your screen. And then I will spotlight your video. You should have a big green share button in the bottom. And that'll let you share either your PowerPoint or your screen.
Right. The screen is the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So we're all set to go?
Yeah, we are all set to go. And thank you so much for joining us. Really excited for this one.
I want to apologize for my voice. Last week I had a king-size cold, and it was one of those a week ago Wednesday. I wished I would die, but when I found out I wasn't going to die, I still wished I would die. It's an interesting thing in doing this particular presentation. I originally had outlined 3 different presentations for pens up to World War II, which is kind of a nice dividing line in Pelikan's history. And then Pelikan pens from World War II to present.
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We lost your PC connection, so we don't see your screen or your video, and your audio coming through your phone's a little soft.
You lost the PC connection.
Yep, I don't see you in the list at all from the PC, and we can't see your screen. And your video went away. I spotlighted it, but then it disappeared.
Right. All right. Let's see what I can do here. It looks like I'll have to reattach. Sorry about that.
No worries. Never really know what to expect with the technology from day to day. So
yeah, and telecommunications was my avocation for 40 years. How about now? Like that?
No video. It looks like you're reconnected. So if you start your video, I can spotlight you again. All right. See you spotlighting. Okay, so now you can go ahead and share your screen again. All right, perfect. We see your screen and your video.
Well, that's interesting. I don't see my screen, but
Yeah, we're looking at yours. Oh, there we go. There.
Yep.
Perfect.
So I was saying 3 different series, and the 3rd series was supposed to be special Pelikans, mostly limited edition and so forth. So we did a little differently this time. We, as I was going through it too, about half of those pens that I had in the previous presentations are no longer in my possession, being that I trade and sell a lot. So I put this together instead. And I thought it most appropriate to start off with some definitions. Whoops, we'll never get anywhere. Starting at the top, in a limited edition is simply one that has a number on it. Did I lose you again? Am I still on audio?
Ken, you're muted.
But
Thank you. Yes, yeah, we can see your video from the computer and we can hear your voice over the phone.
all right, so
but
how's
we
that
can't see
better?
your screen.
You can't see me.
I can see you, but not your screen.
All right, there's the share screen again.
Okay, we see the definition screen. Yep.
Okay. I seem to have a shaky internet connection. I was telling you, I'm on cable, not on Wi-Fi. Cable seems to have a problem. But in any event, limited edition means it's got a number on it. And the second one, of course, my example, 275 over 1,000, that means 1,000 were made. And that becomes very important if you're a collector or anything. And we'll see how that affected a lot of the pens and the numbers of pens we had. In the very first limited edition, true to form, where the marketing department wasn't talking to the production department, it wasn't talking to the sales, you know, all of that sort of thing in a large corporation. They forgot to put the number on the pen. And all other cases, it's either stamped on the large, wide gold band around the bottom of the cap, or in the case of some of the Matier, it's got a gold nameplate with the number stamped in it. But we'll see how that goes on. They tried in the particular first one to say, gee, that went so fast. I think there were a total of 5,000. Why don't we make some more? Well, over half of the 5,000, well, let's see, 1,500 plus 500 went to the North American distributor, the largest customer in the world. And all the people who have gotten them from him said, that dilutes the value of our limited edition. And what the American or North American distributor had done, very smartly printed up a bunch of blank certificates and mailed them to the designer of the pen, who numbered them and signed them all. And mailed them back, and then they went in the cases 1 through 2000. And the rest of the world, so now I have both on my table for sale. I have one that's just a pen, no box. And I have one in the specially designed box for this pen. It's a black, shiny plastic with the certificate inside. And that one is tagged about $12.50 in the market. And the other one's $400 less at $8.50. So you can see what a difference that makes. So this evolved to some other terminology, and the other one that we need to think about is special edition. And I said here, either time and material limited. And what that means, they really don't know how many they might make. They might have bought a truck full of a certain resin, for instance, or they'd have a couple of pens that they made just for Valentine's Day. So they said, we're only going to sell them up to Valentine's Day, and so on. So they're now, if like the Streisman became so popular in its initial offering, they decided to change it from a special edition into a regular production or catalog edition. So those were really the, there's a fourth category, contract. They do or have in the past made a number of pens, as we'll see, under contract to people. So I've got some examples of that here. And the Streisman is the only one in recent memory that has moved into the catalog. And it moved into 4 flavors, or 3 flavors, 400 size, the 800 size, and the 1000 size, all right? Now, I hate to burst some bubbles here, but the number of chicks, if somebody's not aware of what I'm talking about, for instance, top right is very vivid. There's 1 chick there being fed by the mother, and bottom right, there's 2 chicks being fed by the mother, and so on. And unfortunately, that does not tell you when the pen was made. Okay, everybody thinks it does. Within a specific pen, it will help guide you to certain periods of time, But if you look from pen A to pen B to pen C, they're all different. Okay, which is the same. Now the one they're trying to standardize that. The one up on the top row that's all metal gold, that is the current one for all of the pens. Okay, it's a one chip logo. So all new pens are the gold plate like that. But you can see there's only the bottom right and the lower left right are at the lower left are the two chips. Right? And I actually discovered the other day I didn't even have one that is different on here that I should have. But it's good to know, say, if you bought an M800 classic green stripe with a black cap, that the chicks will tell you when it was. But it might be with the blue, it might not tell you. Of course, the blue is not a catalog item anymore. This will give you an idea of all of the pens in the Souveran, and that translates to English, by the way, as sovereign. Queen Elizabeth is the sovereign of Great Britain, royalty, right? So that was the thing. You'll notice in the numbering, by the way, if you were to draw a genealogy chart on all these, at the top of the pyramid, you would get a trio of not Souverans, but you would get the 400, 400N, and 400NN. And those are named with typical German creativity in manufacture. Neue, meaning new, and new. And of those three, in fact, the 400N, they only did for about 6 months. So that's one of the most valuable Pelikans you can have. Lo and behold, sheer numbers did that. Now, what happened, the M400, which has on the top of the cap, which I call the crown shape, that was really the first one. And they jumped from the 400 to the M400. That really gave us the landmark there. At that time, they also had a 300, but no M300. In fact, of all these, the M300 was the last one produced in terms of years. For those of you who have OCD, like me, that 300 was the right size. It was slightly smaller than the M400 and slightly bigger than the M200, which is a much later pen, the M200. However, they stopped making it, 91, I think, 92. And later on came out with a 300, which is so small. Well, those of you who know me, I don't have hands, I have paws, right? I can pick up basketballs. And I can't use the M300 unposted. It falls down between, the webbing between my thumb and my forefinger. I mean, it's that short, all right? Now, my business partner has very petite hands, and that's one of her favorites. But even she uses it capped. And by the way, I cap all my pens. And the guy I met from Nakaya, which in translation in English is Nakaya, who makes pens, was very pleased that I capped his beautiful Urushi pen. It's meant to be, he said. And if it doesn't fit, then it's not meant to be. Because I have a Mont Blanc where the barrel is square and the hole is round. You can't cap it. So there you have it. The 300 was very late, and the catalog, you can get green and black now, but they have a multitude of other colors. They had a ruby red, which I'm also not of. I had a dozen of those just recently, and that was for Valentine's Day. Imagine that it came in this leatherette box in the shape of a heart, with a little tiny bottle of bright red ink and inside and so on. They said, gee, that works so well. The following Valentine's Day, they did another one with a pearlescent white, and that was sold out right away. They had the other reason we might see specialized special edition pens is by market. There have been a number of pens that have been done for Asia only, as a matter of fact. In fact, if I back up here, no. Oh, well, I did not include that slide here. I'm sorry. Pelikan is a German firm incorporated in Switzerland, but owned by a Malaysian-based money fund. And one person owns 51% of the money fund. So basically, a gentleman named Mr. Liu, who's based in Singapore, owns Pelikan. We do whatever he says, and gee, surprise, surprise, we always get special Asian editions, okay? Which is unfortunate sometimes. So you'll notice that the three on the right don't have that sort of crown-looking finial on top, right? They're all plastic button basically. So they have advanced from there. So this is the one that I call, and most of the world calls, the demo, the first limited edition that they forgot to put the serial number on. I only put the 200 in for comparison because that came years later, not at the same time. This is one of the most common ways actually to tell the difference between a real Pelikan and a counterfeit. You'll notice on both of the pens, there's at the bottom of the cap, there's a small band and a wide band, and they're always attached. And they came from the same piece of metal. And that helps, and there's 4 of them around. That helps the manufacturer actually put them on, and in the counterfeits, those little tabs between the 2 bands are not there. So you can spot it right off. Okay? And this is one that, well, there's the numbers at the bottom. 2,000 to the US and smaller quantities to Italy and France. And then the US dealers, which actually, turns out it was the distributor, who today is called ChartPack, created a certificate with a number. Okay? That I got, I bought mine in the United States before I was a serious collector, and certainly before a dealer, at an art supply store in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1993. That's been my everyday carry since. That's the one pen I have that I've used every day. I've got an architect nib in it right now. Then they came along with some of these at different dates. So sorry to confuse the date issue, but the 800 series was first. The one on the bottom was actually the one that was first. Then we see these that called the engineer's pen. At the top, it's got the parts inside are all labeled. Like I see the one word standing out, twist, stop. And the one in the middle is the same, except it's in Spanish. So, but they only made a few hundred of the ones in Spanish. And not too long ago, then they started making them in 805s, the designation being the rhodium plated hardware. And then they had a 1005 also, both engineering terms plus plain. And last year during the pandemic, they issued 2 of them that are labeled in Chinese. Now, I'm out of my depth here. One of them is classic Chinese Mandarin, I'm told, and the other is called simplified Mandarin. And apparently there's 21 terms. If you know a little bit about Chinese, they use terms to build other terms that are more common use. Those I don't have in my possession, but I have those. So. Now, Pelikan's made 5 different green shades of emerald. And this is the second darkest one. Asian market only for some reason. And going across, we've got the fountain pen, the roller balls. All the roller balls are ones with caps. You take the cap off to use it. Then we've got the ballpoint and the pencil on the right-hand side. It's a 200 M200 fountain pen. I have not seen that anywhere else. So just that one that I've actually seen. Remember, that was the second darkest green. And this is the one that Pelikan officially calls the first limited edition. It's not. The top 2 went through a bunch of name changes in the marketing department. They actually did, what do you call, little test groups of people to see what fit. They called it the Sailing Pen, the Admiral's Cup, 7 Seas, blah, blah. And finally came up with Blue Ocean, which I think was kind of nice. It's a transparent blue, and it's really a very bright blue. It's very lovely. Then they had two more blue ones, and you can't see it with my poor lighting in my photography. The bottom one is one of my favorites. It's called the 75th year, and it was the first example of having created a pen for somebody else. They were celebrating the 75th anniversary of something. I've read what it was, but I don't recall. And the same thing with then the one that looks black, it's actually a really dark opaque blue. Okay, so that was, I think, wait a minute, let me think about that. I believe that's a Sony pen. They made pens in the 800 and the 200 size for Sony under contract. And then we start to go over to, these are technically called Toledos because they're all produced the same way in Toledo, Spain. And each pen is produced by one engraver. So they send the pen without the binda, and that's a German word for the silver or steel or gold sleeve that slides over it. And the binda is separate. So this series of 5 was put out of 5 successive years. And it's one of our dealers really hate this. They made no attempt for us to get matched serial numbers. I've done that before, again, since then. The sent it to Spain. And so if I were to look at, say, the white one, 2 of them side by side, I would likely be able, with a magnifying glass, be able to find differences, very slight differences. After all, it was a human being doing it by hand. It's very impressive. And the way I've ordered these, the first one in the series was the Dragon, and that's the black one. It's got a very impressive fire-eating dragon there. The second was Gold Phoenix, which is the red one. And it's not my favorite. It's not a fire engine red. It's got a little of the, what would you call it, clay or color mixed into it. Very lightly, but it's there. Then the third one was the Xuan Wu, which is at the bottom, a marbled green. The fourth one, no, I said that wrong. The third one was the White Tiger, excuse me. I put them in order of the year they were produced. The top, pearlescent piston knob and cap, and a very ferocious looking tiger, as a matter of fact. The fourth one was the Xuan Wu, which is a mythical beast on the bottom. These are all Chinese themes. And then the fifth one is the Kirin, which is the yellow one. And I made notes because I can never remember this. Tell you what, this is another mythical beast. It's really, if we ever have one of these Godzilla versus some other Mothra versus whatever, I'm going to be on the side of the Kirin. Let's see, he's got the head of a dragon, the snout of a pig, the antlers of a deer, the back of a tiger, the waist of a bear, the hooves of a horse, the tail of a lion. And the whole animal is covered in scales that are translucent. So he can't be harmed, right? But that's all from Chinese mythology. By the way, all of these, the magic number 8 in Chinese, these all were produced in 888 pieces each. There's often some significance to the number of pieces done. Then we did a little stepping out. Until now, we only had 800 size. And Pelikan says, well, we're going to call the next one an M1000, except this is the only one of that size. And the actual pen that hit production is the bottom one. And it's 3 prototypes on top. And the first prototype, as you can see, needs polishing, is sterling silver and had a silver nib. The second one down as the one I think had an all gold nib, not two-tone. And then they went to the sterling silver outside that is got a rhodium plated nib. And I have no idea what the thinking process was between these, but they landed on the one at the bottom. And it is longer than an M1000 today. It in the middle, and particularly around the bottom of the cap, it is wider in diameter. And in fact, it has much more taper than any other Pelikan, smaller at both ends. So that was the one in that M1000 size. And then they moved over to the one that we know now with the same profile, really, particularly in the tapering of all the M series, the Souveran series. Then we tried, and this is an my note says M800, was really an 805 because of the hardware. The Icarus and Daedalus legend, and it shows the sterling silver medallion on the barrel of father and son going up in there with their wax wings too close to the sun. And it's probably the least successful of all of their limited editions. They never sold out, as a matter of fact. They're almost, Pelikan sold out now, but part of the price was it's just an M800 and with a silver medallion. And I think the first MSRP was just under $2,000. It was like $18.99 or something. But it does come in a book, the first 30 pages of the story of Icarus and Daedalus. And then the rest of the book inside, pages are carved out right in the middle to put the pen in. And next to it, another vertical carve out where it's a single pen box goes in. You close the book up. It's a very fine looking book. It's got a slipcase. You put it in the slipcase and you put it up on your shelf. There you go. And the thief that's robbing your house doesn't know. I love this one. Gaudi was the artist, of course. And not only do I like the silver overlay, but the case for this one is really, think of you went to Dairy Queen and got an extra large ice cream cone. And then you took the cone away, threw it away, and just set the ice cream on the desk. So you have this pile of getting towards the pyramidal shape, right? Well, the Gaudi case, I think, is 6.5 pounds. I mean, it's really heavy. And it's cut vertically all the way across, and one side is hinged, and you open up the two sides like this, and it's not hinged. And there's this pen sitting there in a little snugly in a cup, small cup, and up above, where you've opened it, there's a snug felt line thing that grabs the top. So when you close it, it's held secure in the middle of this. There's a big thumb screw to close the. It's really, well, it's Gaudi, actually. It's what it is. So, but that's an M805. And I threw these in for reference because these were produced in the same time, right in the smack dab in the middle of the Souveran series. But I used the word re-edition, which I don't know if that's a real word or not, but they recreated the celebration of the original fountain pens from 1929 to 1935. And these were the first four. The 1932 was the Toledo, the one we all called Toledo. And the model number was actually T111. And then it turns out there's 4 variations of the plain gold binda. There's 2 with a little weak pattern vertically. And there's one that's the gold, yellow gold, and there's one that's a white gold. So they only included this in the reproductions. Then the lapis and the jade, it's interesting how the public perception, which really at this point sets the price on these. So it's no longer anything to do with what they really cost originally. The Toledo is usually about 1,700 now, which is the leader of the pack. The gold binda is only 1,200. The lapis is running about 900, and the jade is a distant fourth at about 600, 650, something like that. Don't ask me why. They all come in a beautiful black lacquered box. I mean, they're really very impressive, but there was, and still is an argument that a solid gold model was included in there, and that was produced. This is 1932 pen. They didn't put one in the reproductions though. And boy, is my lighting bad. I had both the yellow gold and the white gold, and all I have left is the white gold, and that's supposed to be white gold that you're looking at. But it almost looks like yellow gold, I know. By the way, it's a beautiful pen, writes. I carry it in my pocket for a couple months, writes like a champ. then they said, well, look, we have all these others in our heritage. So around 2005, they started with some of these. The first one was the one in the middle. That's the tortoise from way back when. And then the second pen Pelikan produced was actually the lizard skin, it's called. And the two on the right were issued only 5 years ago at the same time. The black capped one mimics the original from 1935. And that's not sterling. That is platinum on the end caps of that pen. Right away, you see dollar signs. And you can't see it from this shot here, but on top of the finial, okay, if you were looking straight down at the top, there's 3 diamonds in there also. And that was the 170th anniversary, I think. And I learned this lesson too. You have to be careful. Sometimes they say anniversary and they mean the anniversary of Pelikan from 1824 or 1832 or 1838. There's argument about that too, by the way. And sometimes they say, no, the anniversary of the first fountain pen, which is 1929. So you can't tell. This is obviously the company's very fun. And just to give you an idea, the black cap one is $650, and the one with the 3 diamonds is $3,500. So a little bit of difference there. It comes with a bottle of ink. Gee whiz, you know. Now this is our last sort of a stake in the ground on the timeline, the last of the 400s. And they were indecisive as to whether to try to make different pens for the 400 NN or not. So they tried with some color ones, blue, red, and green, and they went okay, nothing spectacular, but they went. And that's when they decided to do the M400 at this point. So these are relatively common if you're in the vintage markets. And it's not very handy because I thought I'd do a size comparison. The black and the gray one were actually 300s, the original 300 size. So, and from here, it looks obviously they're smaller than the 400s, right? Or the 400. Well, they weren't that much different. It was only like this centimeter and a half or 2 centimeters, or millimeters, excuse me. A little bit of difference there. This is under special license, and this is a very interesting set. The bottom 2 are actually the set, and that's an 800, I should say 805, and an 1000 on the bottom, which is interesting, having gold hardware on a silver pen. And these, let me tell you, these are a pain in the neck. It's all raw sterling silver. And they get black in a heartbeat, I swear. We'll leave one day at a pen show and come back, and they're black. You know, it's and the top one's a prototype. So the middle one, the 800, is for Queen Charlotte, and its design matches some of the design on the statue of Queen Charlotte at the Charlotte International Airport, which is interesting. And then Queen Marguerite, I believe, she was Spanish queen, right? Somebody bartered her though to become queen of some other country. They kept swapping queens all the time. I don't know my history well enough. And this prototype at the top, which is an 800 size, but as the name implies, it's one of a kind. So, that was, by the way, oops, done by Classic Pen Company, which is Andy Lambro, and he did get a special license from Pelikan to do this, which is important to do 500. And you can probably at most shows, you can get a copy of it. He's got 2 different books that I would recommend. One is Fountain Pens of the World, and one is Fountain Pens of Japan. They're both big, thick books and coffee table size, monsters. Very, very good. So he did this sort of licensing thing deal with Parker and Schaefer and a number of other pen companies. And I kicked myself when I did this because I wanted to show the relative size of the M300, but being that the M300 set here is all by itself, you know, that could be 3 feet long. It could be an inch long. How do you know? There's nothing to compare. I wish I had laid an M1000 next to it or something, but that was in a 3-piece set. Here's another Citroën. Citroën Pens is a Scandinavian firm that makes adult beverages. I think it's, well, it was published in Holland, but I'm not sure that's where the company is. It doesn't matter. Turns out the CEO and owner is a big fan of Pelikans, and in general, he's a big cartoonist. He just draws cartoons for fun. So they gathered 25 years of his cartoons, put them in the first 25 or so pages of the book, and then it flips to blank pages you can see in the middle, and they're carved out where the pen goes on one side and the box, single pen box, goes on the other side. So that was another one done under contract for someone else. They're the only ones that have the right to that particular yellow, as a matter of fact. One of my favorites. I love this. Some of you may be familiar with the high-end watch, the Chrono Swiss watch. I believe last time I looked, which is at least 5 years ago, the low end of the Chrono Swiss watch started at $3,500. They went on up to $50,000, something like that. The gentleman who founded and owns the company was a huge Pelikan fan. In fact, his everyday carry was the same as mine. How about that? Except he's got 7-digit numbers in the bank and I don't. And it was the green demonstrator. He put a certificate in with each pen also, but the number is on the pen. If you look at the, it's on the bottom, the twist knob, there's a silver plate with the number inscribed. He made 1,000 of them. Guy must be a programmer or an IT guy of some kind also, because 0 is the first one. 999 is the last one. That's 1,000 serial numbers, right? And he signed all of the certificates to the watches with his green demonstrator. And then he finally said, you know, Pelikan, I need my own pen. How many you need? He said, 1,000 will do it. So like, this is one of the other emerald shades of green. It's the second darkest one, second lightest one. The demonstrator that I carry and this one, those are 1 and 2 on the lightness. So it's a beautiful emerald green. You can see right through it. You can see some of the hardware in the cap there inside. You notice there's a tube there with a cork stuck in it too. Well, the unusual part about this was not only that it had a green leatherette case, custom designed for this, but it came with 2 nibs. So typical sets were broad and fine. That's one of the beauties of the Pelikan pen, of course. Just unscrew one nib and screw it a different one, which is what he assumed people would do. But if you look at it, nowhere on the nib or the pen itself does it say Pelikan. The only thing that says Pelikan was this little piece of cardboard tucked inside the case, which told you that it was a Pelikan and which serial number it was. But the serial number in this particular one is 451 out of 999. And that's really the 452nd pen out of 1,000, right? Since 0 is the first one. But and then if you look at the end of the clip, and you look at if you're wearing a watch, the little knob on the side that you might pull out and use to set the time or whatever, that's what that looks like. It looks like that ice cream thing too that's been swirled around and then somebody flattened it. So it's got from North Pole to South Pole, it's got all of these, I don't want to call them, they're bigger than striations. And on the piston knob, there's a, whoops. There's a silver band. And on the crown around the side, there's a silver. They both have the knurling I think it's hard to say correctly, but it's KNURL when you grab a part of the watch to wind. Okay, so it's, and one of the beauties of it is also that you open it up and you've got this beautiful nib, two-tone gold nib with his brand on it. And it actually is, you see his mark up there on the pad under the word Chrono Swiss. It's a C with the backwards R. That's his trademark. And that's what's on the nib. But it's an M800. You can just unscrew it and screw in any M800 nib. So it's very nice from that standpoint. More private labels, as they were. The one on the left is catalog. That's Pelikans. And they had two private labels. The first one will look like boxes. Those are actually more like stars in the sky. And another one I don't have pictured, which actually had stars with twinkling rays coming out from it. So those were called, they're the 200 frame. They were called 225s. In the 90s, Pelikan put out a test version of the Strissman in 200 size. And that's what the third pen in is. But the stripes were with my back fully.
Yes.
Okay, I lost the connection for a minute. But that one, third from the left, is the Strissman before the Strissman was invented. And they just let it out quietly. There wasn't a shortage of numbers or anything, but there it was. And the last three are under private label to Fountain Pen Hospital. One of them, the blue one, is 205, and the other two are 200s. And they've got some crazy names. The only I remember the middle one, the red one, is Cajun Red. And the one on the right is they reused the resin from one of their city series pens called the Grand Place. And later on, I have a picture of they have an 800 version of that, all of that called the Grand Place. So I don't remember the blue. They were weird names. They only made like 100. So there they are. Well, I've lost control. Well, let's see. Then they made this series that they aborted rather quickly. They had 3 of the M625s, 3 of the M425s, and this is the 5th. Well, each of the series had a red one, a blue one, and a green one, and they were all transparent. Believe it or not, those pens are transparent. And the one on the right, the 600 series, is so dark and emerald green, you have to hold it up to a strong light to see, but it's actually transparent because if you have a light on it, you can see your finger back there and so forth. All 6 of those together had 6 different caps, sterling silver. They're beautiful. And I have 2 of the 400s left. I have a 625 that's red. It's a gorgeous red that I bought actually at the recent Raleigh show. And boy, if I get my hands on that guy now, he inked it up and then forgot it in a drawer for over 2 years. And when he remembered, it was because the cap had unscrewed itself and was rolling around in the drawer. So it's in the air for who knows how long. I've never had one defeat me yet, but I cannot get the twist knob to twist. It's only been soaking for 10 days, in regular room temp water. Now, there's 2 new digits in our numbering scheme. If it's a 50 at the end, it means it's got a vermeil cap. And I read a book by, what was his first name? Eddie Twiddle, I believe, is a well-known London pen person who died about 10 years ago. But he had a couple pages that said exactly what vermeil was in the technical and legal sense, it was sterling silver with a special electrolysis technique, which technically qualifies it for plating. But rather like the normal electroplating they put on nibs or other parts, this was 4 to 5 times thicker than what you would put on a nib. So I've seen lots of nibs, and you probably have too, where the nib has had the gold plating rub off. That doesn't happen here. So it's now I just finished saying that, and the 1050s on the right. I don't have a picture of the 850. One of my other everyday carries is the black one with the vermeil cap. And I cleaned it and put it away as we went into hiding for the last year. And I just recently pulled it out a couple weeks before the rally show. And lo and behold, if you look, the cap bands on these, they are actually engraved around the bottom. They're not an added gold ring. And my goodness, the black one that I have is tarnished at the bottom of the cap. That means that it's leaking. The sterling silver underneath is leaking through the gold. So I'm not sure how I'm going to fix that. But so we had 4 colors of the 650s, none of which are cataloged now. 2 colors of the 1050s, not cataloged. In fact, I'm not aware of any of the 50 series that can be ordered now, unfortunately. There's a wide variety of special and limited editions. The one I call the orange creamsicle, that's a 600 size. It was a typical special edition. We have this much resin. We're going to make these till it runs out. Funny how that lasted about a quarter, a fourth or a third of the year, and then they're gone. The Stone Garden was the same way. The metal stripe was the same way. That's not to be confused with the Stressman. That's the metal stripe. And then there's a limited edition of Silver Screen, which is extremely heavy, solid sterling cap, and a beautiful walnut case with a glass top on it. It's really lovely. They had a series called 7 Wonders of the World. This gold and blue one is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, and I'm told it has almost an ounce of gold in it. We get gold up a couple $100 more, and I'm going to melt that sucker for the gold. It's worth more that way. They had Wall Street, and that is a gold ingot, I think is the right word, on the side, it's labeled 24 karat. The green of green, that's the one green that I don't really care for. It's about 4 different shades of army green. I just never could see the why. And then we have the blue, brilliant blue. My goodness. Yeah, I think it was, no, it wasn't brilliant blue. It was something like that. Very popular, went right away. Renaissance brown, those are all gone. And the tortoise is an M600, which was a special edition, as opposed to the M400, which is still a catalog item. So they were sold out. I think I sold my last one in Washington about 4 years ago. And then there's a nature series. This particular one on the right is, they gave it a new numbering and a new clip too, for some reason. 640 is the series. And this is actually the 645 because it's silver. And that's Niagara Falls. And they had Northern Lights, Mount Everest, Indian Summer, let's see, Polar Lights. One other doesn't come immediately to mind, but they were in the 600. Also, sometimes informally called, and you can see why. See the swage in the barrel? It's a little thicker in the middle, so this is called the Pregnant Series. I'm going to just run through these. Second one from the top, I've sold a bunch of those to Clemson graduates, the orange barrel. And the third one is that Grand Place in the 800 size. Let's see, what's the Stressman then is down a couple. And there's a list, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from Stressman to the black of the 800s, and of those, they make only the green and the black now. The joke about the red one is they stopped selling it because it was too popular. The last one I sold was $1,500. Which is, yeah, double its normal price. And and they've also stopped selling the 805s of any of these. No 805s in the 800 regular line. I got a couple of 600s on the bottom here, and then a 605 and a 600. Then we go over to, well, those are 800s, the top three. That one's an 850, and you can see the 1000 sticks out over the edge of the tray. Okay, and it's a 1000 demo. Another Stressman. Whoops. I have a touch sensitive screen, and when I touch it by accident, I'm pointing to it. Obviously, you can see me pointing to it, right? What else do we have of unusual here? Oh, then they had a special edition M200 in Asia, and that's the blue one, the light blue one. And I was doing a trade with some guy a long time ago, and to balance out the tray, he threw in 10 of those. So I was the only game in town really with that till I sold them all out. And then the red one and the tortoise will come to those. And there's a 400. Now, the interesting thing about the red one and the tortoise, is the trivia point, which I've told many people. They were made short on purpose because in 1929, what did men wear all the time? Vests, three-piece suits. So they had to go in a vest pocket. However, if you take that red one, when you open it and cap it, it's the same size as an M800 capped. Hard to believe, but it is. It's lighter pen. Then this is the one I was talking about. That was much darker Stressman. And here, if you had a genealogy tree for pencils, and Pelikan has a complete line of pencils, this would be the one at the top, okay? And it was the start of the 200 series. A K200 is a pencil. A B200 is a roller ball. And of course, an R is a ballpoint. Why did we swap those two around? I don't know. What some people say, the real Toledo. And I don't have actually the real original Toledo on here. The only one I can get today is the gold in the middle. And they didn't use 400 and 800. They call it 700 and 900. So the one in the middle is a 700 on the 400 body. The one second from the left is the 910. And the one that's smaller there, third from the left, is actually a mistake. It was supposedly thrown out. See, he never finished the Pelikan. Can you imagine sitting there with those big glasses on and little etching tool, and somebody slams the door? You go, oh, damn, and you put a big scratch all the way across your design or whatever. And that's basically what that was. Another 910 and a 710. The 900 and the 700 are the only ones in catalog now. And then we got the yellow and red, which were surprisingly popular. I'm sold out of those, except for, I think, one yellow and one red now. And the one that, I don't know if you've got your facial pictures on top of it like mine, but the one on the right-hand side is actually navy blue. And that's a prototype because they didn't manufacture those straight out. So it's a one of a kind. Commissioned. These were commissioned by Bill Weekly, actually. Paul Rossi is a marvelous artist. The two on the left took the special editions M805 75th Yarrow, which was already a semi-scarce pen. And he made them into these two beautiful pens on the left from a picture that Bill gave him of his bride-to-be. She's Russian, and the picture was of her in red square with a classic white parka and a hooded white fur around it, and standing in front of the Orthodox churches there. And Bill said he wanted 10 silver and 10 gold. And further, they were split into 5 and 5 silver of 2 different designs that Paul did. These are all done by him by hand. And one has, you can see the cloud on the left one. And if I turn it around, you can see the moon is out also. The other one doesn't have the cloud, the moon, it's got snowflakes falling all over. So 5 of each of those and 5 of each in gold. Never got done with the gold because by the time he was getting there in the project, gold price had doubled. And he said, sorry, Bill, can't do it. Just no way. This is one, oh, he asked Bill, what do you know about her? What do I do? Well, Bill said he was very astute. She likes roses. So around the top of the cap, you've got 4 roses under the clip there. And there's a big write-up of that in Pen World. Then Paul did some others independently, and Bill saw this one. He said, I want 10 of those. So that one, he never got to the 5 sterling silver ones. And he only got, I think, 4 of the Celtic dragon done. And the way that this sits, the Celtic dragon's head is around the side. It's got a nice big ruby in its eye. Beautiful. But then we come to the ratings. Actually, I think my favorites. One on this thing is on this picture is illegal, and that's the one on the left, done by an artist in Hong Kong who was going to make a bunch of them. Started to advertise on eBay, and Pelikan came in and said, that's our intellectual property, you can't do that. And technically the way he was doing it is he made you buy the pen, the unadorned pen, and commission him to put the overlays on it. So that actually is legal, right? But if he had just gone ahead and bought the pens himself and put all the stuff on it for sale on speculation, that's illegal. But the net result was the guy said, the lawyer said, you've got the right here, but he said, they're deep, their pockets are about infinitely deeper than yours. So do you want to risk going out of business? So he stopped. So that's a one of a kind. The first maquillé that Pelikan put out was a match pair on the 800 barrel. One was an 800, one was an 805. And the second and third one, they're identical 800s. I just had an extra one. And the fourth one is an 805. It's the only 805 in the whole series. So the 2 of them, third and fourth, came out together, and you had to buy them that way. It was a match pair, double the price basically. That worked so well that they came out with the big one in the middle, and the other one's called Sunlight, the other one's called Moonlight, the green one separately. You could buy those separately. And then they had Starlights, the second from the right, and I think Dawn was the one on the right. And that doesn't seem right to me. I may have misremembered that, I'm sorry. So that's all their maquillé. Now you compare the maquillé, say the first 2 on the left. Pelikan, maquillé, almost all of it's made from an abalone shell, which is a monopod arthropod, popular in diners in California, meaning it's only got half a shell that covers it. So the divers go down, they pry it off a rock, they sell the animal inside to the fish market, and the inside of the abalone shell is like mother of pearl. So they boil it for some long period, like 24 or 48 hours in lye. And the object is to get the abalone to separate into just single layers. And the guy told me that usually the first layer or 2 is damaged anyway, so they want to get that off. Then they take the layer and they pin it down on a board and they dry it out. And then they take I can just see them with their little X-Acto knife and a metal ruler, cutting it into strips. And actually, I'm told they have a machine that does that. So the strips are all perfect. And then they make an effort in the Pelikan ones to not put matching colors next to one another. So you see the one called Sunlight, the second and third one. They have just a beautiful set of different colors. Unlike the Japanese artists over here, who made a great effort to put matching strips next to each other. And you can see the mother of pearl design carried through on that first one, across strips. So imagine sitting there cutting them and putting it on strip at a time on top of urushi was the initial glue, and keeping them straight and all that sort of thing. Wow. So that's their last foray into full maki-e. They have maki-e in several of their other pens, like these. They have Raiden in several of their maki-e pens. And see, my collection has changed so much since then. The one on the left is summer fall. Then you have ginkgo leaves. The third one you can see is a four-leaf clover. The pair, which is fourth and fifth, are very special. That's another one that was sold only in a pair. And they're called Health and Wealth. There were 66 pairs made. Then you have Renjishi, which was the original MSRP was $10,000 on Renjishi. And you can't, I wish you could handle it. In a normal seminar, I would have all these with me and pass them around so you can look at them. But if you look at the bottom half of the Renjishi, that's a guy standing there with a huge mane, bright red hair. And let me tell you, this was a Chinese novel written like a century after The Tale of Genji was written in Japanese court. But it's still, I mean, we're talking about 900 BC, something like that. And he made Don Juan look like a kindergartner. He was not a nice man, and all the ladies in the palace traveled in groups because they were afraid of meeting Renjishi and so on. And then at the top, somewhere in the midlife, he found religion. At the top, right under the clip, you can see the white hair, big swirl of white hair. And he got religion and started doing good things, building orphanages and homes for widows and all kinds of things like that. So it's quite a tale, fairy tale. And the last one on the right is the dragonfly. So those are, I used to have this pair is cherry blossom and maple, which were 800s, sold as a pair. And then we had this pair, which were very expensive. And I put the finial there so you can see the art. Oh, and the little gold strip under the finial, that's where the serial numbers are on these pens. And you can see that the gold looks like it's almost solid, but the artist has a brush with only a couple of bristles in it. And he actually has a video I watched. He took a spatula full of the color of the gold. He put it on the end of those bristles, and then he used his finger, his thumb, really, to flick those few bristles, and patiently put it all over the gold finial and the gold body. And you can see it at the bottom of near the twist knob on the two hole samples. So it took one man 11 months to make a pair. So there were several people. And then I just wanted to throw this in with a couple other suggestions for you. We're at the end here, and I'd be glad to take over. If we hadn't had technical difficulties, we'd been right on time, right? You'll see this is where, you can't see my cursor, can you? Right there on the
Yeah, yeah, we can see your cursor.
Oh, good. It's got an S where you normally expect to see M for medium or F for fine and so forth. And Pelikan has a Make-A-Wish nib program. You make your appointment in Hanover, and he sends you a bunch of paperwork that wants you to describe what you want, and requires a number of readiness samples. He actually gives you text that he wants you to copy. Send it back. Then you go to Hanover for your appointment. And you're sitting there with him, and he grinds it for you. This particular one I had ground into an architect's nib, and I've been using that for, goodness gracious, I think mid-90s, something like that. And S is just like in German and English, it's special. It's the only place you get a nib with an S on it is sit down with the Nibmeister, okay? And the cost was you have to buy a nib. That's the only part that Pelikan sells to anybody, and then they only sell them to dealers. Okay? And it's like the old joke about trying to go into AutoZone and buy parts for a car and build a car that way. It winds up costing about $500,000 or something, and that's the retail prices on their nibs, and I can get them for you or anybody, and I don't sell them anywhere near retail. But they are, I think for the M1000, I think it's $750 for just the nib alone. The pen retails at $1,200. So, and I meant to say, by the way, that the 1000 is a flexible nib on all Pelikans. It's the only flexible nib they have, but they don't like to call it flexible. They call it semi-flexible. But if you've seen an M1000 nib, it's huge. It looks like a shield some Roman soldier used, you know, and you just put the slightest pressure on it and you're leaving huge trails of ink. So semi-flex is good. The only complaints I've ever heard is, oh, it gushes, you know. So anyway, that's one suggestion. And then I put, wait a minute, where's my, I have one more slide on the bottom. Yeah, there it is. A little bibliography. And I can hold it up. You can see the book. It's a big one. And Skrivgarate means writing instrument, basically. And this is the second edition. The first edition I've seen on eBay is the white one. I've seen that for $175 on eBay. They're written by Jürgen Dittmer and Martin Lehman. And the second edition I most recently saw at $600 on eBay. And you really, truly, it's that much better than the first edition. This man, Jürgen Dittmer, I should have put a picture in when I was at the Hamburg show. He and I posed together. He worked for Pelikan his entire life before he was an adult. And he retired, this is the second January since he's been retired. He worked for them for 70 years full time. 70 years. Can you imagine? He's 80 something now, but he tried to go half-time, but he just decided it was time. He couldn't keep in touch, and that's it. So he hired his replacement, who's 67. Can you imagine? But the wealth of knowledge, oh, man, he was something special. And admittedly, that's where I got some of those prototypes too, a one-time deal. So there's the whole line. If you ask me about any Pen A, Pen B, Pen C, I couldn't tell you when that model of the 600 started and finished, because they were all, Pelikan lists the date they started design and the date they decided to go in production and the date they finished, and they're all different in the same line of pens, right? Which is unfortunate, but most of them I can look up in the, everybody refers to it as encyclopedia, but it's not. It's got a lot of holes, unfortunately. So, be glad to take any questions if anybody has any. Oh, one other thing, there's a new book, Modern Pelikan, it's called, by Pelikan. That's due here at the end of the month. We're at the 26th. It's not here yet, but and it's $80, a little bit steeper. But I haven't seen a table of contents or anything. So, two websites at the bottom. Go there. Yes.
Oh yeah, we got a couple of questions.
Great.
Rick, and I was going to actually ask this too, because I think we're on the same wavelength here. You didn't mention my favorite Pelikan, the M800 Tortoise from 2013. Were these limited or special editions? How many were there, and how much do they cost today? That's also my favorite.
It was an unexpected special edition. It didn't come out that way originally. They wanted to keep the tortoise going since that was 1929, right? The T111. But like the red one, it was selling too well, so they stopped making it. The only it was at that time the bestseller of all the colors and all that sort of thing. They're very hard to come by. Just in the last couple of years, I haven't. Well, I have one in my collection, but the last one I sold was in California, which was, I think, 2018. California's a February show, and it was $1,500 then. So they command a real premium. So if you see one for 12, grab it. It's a bargain.
All right. And David asks, says, I've seen photos of the M800 transparent green that shows West Germany on the band, but weren't these made in 1992, 2 years after reunification? Any idea why they have the W?
Big mystery there. And it appears, according to Jürgen, why is this, Jürgen? It shouldn't be. And he said, we had parts. So out of simple economy, he said, we could have just scratched off the West. But I don't know if he was serious or not, but you're right. Well, 89, that was the first German pen show I went to, in fact. And major holiday. And, you know, there's hundreds of kids in the streets and so forth. I couldn't make my way to the show.
So Tom, of all the pens that you showed, all the pens that you have and have had, which one's your favorite? What's your favorite?
Yeah, that green. That's the one I've carried by far the longest of the others. I carry that black 850 also. And, you know, I'm also a platinum dealer. I'm carrying a very rare platinum here, which $10 platinum. It's a step up from the preppy because it's got a metal. But I can throw this in my pocket and not worry about hurting anything. And I carry a Nakaya, and I carry, I'm trying to think of the other one I have there, an M1000 that I had. Some of you may be familiar with the Whacker, the Indian gentleman that goes around. And last time I saw him in Raleigh, he had grown his full beard back again. And he's a system admin by day, and by night he does maquille on Pelikans and some other pens. So he took an M1000 of mine and did it all in eggshell. The entire pen is sort of white. Imagine taking an eggshell, flattening it on the tabletop, and then taking your tweezers and putting all the pieces back onto the Irushi coated cap. So the whole thing's white. But that's the 1000 I carry at the time.
Yeah, it's a painstaking process.
Certainly is. If you get a chance, you should look up his work. I think we can just search on Facebook for Dewhacker, D-I-W-A-K. I think it might be just K-R. It might be E-R, I'm not sure.
What else? Anybody else have questions?
Inquiring minds want to know.
All right, David's got another question. I've been waiting on an M800 green stripe since November. Josh at Pelikan's Perch recently had some intel from Pelikan that his production problems, presumably related to COVID, would be resolved by May or June, but we're almost at the end of June and no one seems to have the M800 back in stock. Do you have any additional info on what's happening?
No, I hadn't heard of that. I'm watching the transcript go by. I'm sorry, my head's bowed down to see that. I hadn't actually heard that. I didn't know that they were all messed up, but I wish I could help. I do have 800s and green 1000s for sale.
All right, and Rick asks, did you say that the 800 blue stripe is no longer made?
Correct. And they had made both the 800 and the 805. And I've got several of each left. Actually, I had a pile of the 805s, and that seemed very popular. The silver color with the blue. So, but they stopped those in 2012, maybe, somewhere around there.
Wow.
You're welcome, David.
Any other questions anyone has?
Do you have a presentation backed up against me, or is there a break?
No, the next one's at 4:30, so an hour and 15 minutes it starts.
Okay. Well, I have no place to go. No hot date tonight. The COVID totally destroyed my social calendar.
No doubt. Bill is asking, will you be at the DC Pen Show?
Yes, I will be. The next pen show is Miami, which I enjoy. I would call it a medium to small size show. And it's kind of funny. It looks smaller than it is because we're at the, I forget, it's a convention center. And he puts us in a room that could have twice as many people in it. So, you know, you have 20-foot aisles, and it makes it look smaller. But Bert's a great show host. He runs that one. He runs them well.
Yeah, he also runs Baltimore too, doesn't he?
Right.
Yep.
And there was another one he had, which he gave up to somebody. Anybody know for sure? He had 3 of them. Oh, Philadelphia used to be Bert's.
Okay. And that's Scott Franklin runs it now, doesn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
Franklin Christoph.
Okay, Jenny's asking if the slide deck will be available, or at least a credits bibliography. And Tom was saying he might send that to me and I could put it up on the site.
Right, the whole thing. There's no rights to worry about or anything. All the pictures are legal and so forth, so you can do what you want with it.
Right, so I'll put that up on the schedule site. If you just go to stlpenshow.com/schedule, where the schedule is posted, I'll just put a link along with Tom's session name and time so that you can access it. And Matthew asks, do you still have any of the stone gardens on hand? He didn't get one.
No.
Now he's kicking himself.
I get a lot. You know, though, at the Raleigh show, which I would have put in the category of a medium-sized show at best, but we had an avalanche this year because pent-up demand. I mean, people came in Thursday afternoon, weekend pass people, at the front doors, double doors, right? I swear they had fists full of cash. I want to buy a pen. I want to buy a pen. It was really funny. I bought 8, 10, 12 or 14 pens then. And I was, for instance, almost out of the 800 and 805 clear demonstrators. And now I have 5 of them in stock. So it goes around a lot. And one of my continuous customers who lives close by in South Carolina was toying with trading his stone garden back to me for some other pen he likes. So I'll be here. It's funny how that one was so popular. I personally didn't really care for it that much. No accounting for taste. Maybe one day I'll even get my website up and running.
Yeah, that's a good question we can address. You know, how would people find you and find what you've got available?
It's just Tom at thepenman.net.
So email?
Yeah.
Have any plans to do a website?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any plans to do a website?
I do. I have a landing page there now and I've got some in preparation. I switched my platforms twice. I'm using, decided to use Shopify now. So, but think of the database design of a pen, you've got a size that's variable, you've got a color that's variable, you've got a nib that's variable, and all within each other. Now I sell, for instance, nibs by the handfuls all the time, all by themselves. So how do I do that in the database? And I used to teach database design in business school, you know, the library sciences school and so on. So that's held me back. Well, none of these platforms are waiting for that, are equipped for that. You notice some very good sites, Anderson's and what's his face?
Goulet.
Goulet, yeah. You notice how they solve the problem. They have like M800 green fine, M800 green medium, M800 green. So they eliminate, well, for database people, they unnormalize their data. And those are repetitive items. So it's been fun. It's been a challenge. I mean, my degree is computer science. So is my partner's, and if she's here listening.
She was. I saw her before. Yep, she's in. Hi, Hong.
Okay. She's got a computer science degree also.
Hi.
So no help from that quarter though. So, what else can I impart?
Do you know of any, you have any secret information on what might be coming in the near term?
Well, you know, the person who does that, and I would highly recommend to all of you subscribing to the Pelikan's Perch blog, Joshua Danley, Dr. Joshua Danley is, he has some amazing sources he's developed over the years. And he wants to talk to, what's the big pen store in Belgium? Here, yeah. I can see the young blonde guy that does a lot of reviews of pens and stuff for the store.
Appleboom?
Yes, thank you, Appleboom. He wants to talk to, well, everybody calls him Josh, but it's a Dutch name. He just picks up phone, calls him, you know, and he gets him. So that, and he's got a number of people on the inside, clearly on the inside, because of some things he's reported in advance. And somehow he always seems to have pictures of some things before us dealers do. It's the current offering that's coming out is at the end of July is continuation to that 600 series with white clear stripes, violet and clear stripes, pink and clear stripes with the white end pieces on it. And this is the white and a very pretty light green. It's the next one in the series. But he had pictures in his blog before Pelikan ever said anything. And they normally will post on their website pictures of the upcoming, whatever it is. So, but it's also very good for Pelikan information. I would just take a look at that. I should put that in my bibliography.
Right. And Matthew's asking, how did you get into Pelikan specifically? What did you find about your personality that attracts you to the brand?
Well, I bought my first fountain pen in 1966 in the college bookstore, a white Bic cartridge pen with Kenyon College on the side, school logo. And the bookstore manager told me that was the last, that Bic was going to stop making fountain pens. So he had, I don't know, a dozen or so. So I bought them all. They were $3.75. And I still have some of them in the shrink wrap. And then I had kids, which kind of puts a damper on your budget, as I'm sure many of you know. And then in celebration of the last one approaching finishing college, I was on a board. I lived in Charlotte, on the theater board. And the lady next to me, who was a big hotshot lawyer in town, her husband had given her an M800 green. Beautiful. She let me play with it and use it. And within a week, I had one of those, and I had one of each size of the green, and off we went. And that was 78, 77, something like that. And I didn't look at another brand for a long time. Now I'm a platinum dealer. And what else? We're a Tasha dealer and Doodler's dealer. So.
All right. Well, it looks like we are out of questions.
All right.
So, yeah, I guess we can wrap up. Tom, thank you so much for joining us and running through this. There were several pens I never even knew existed. So I appreciated learning a little bit of the history and walk through the brand. This was excellent.
Anybody should feel free to send me an email with questions or whatever, or to Hong at hong@thepenman.net, who just showed up here. And I'm glad to answer questions or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. And we've got one more session today. We've got 4 more tomorrow, including Hong, who will be leading a demonstration on doodling and tangles, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
So while I was attending to Tom's section, I did this one. So,
yeah.
So there's a preview for you tomorrow.
Excellent. All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. Tom, again, thank you so much for doing this, and love having you being a part of our virtual experiment this year. And I'm sure I'll catch you at a pen show in the near future. And
let's hope we don't have to do this again.
Yeah, I know it's interesting, but it's been fun too. So,
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.